Hello all, welcome back. So in this video, I'd like to explain to you different vehicle types and what are the key advantages and disadvantages of each types and how each of these information affects your buying decision. So recently, one of the major problems that we're facing every time when we are considering a new vehicle, so whichever region you are, so now there are more options, so therefore making the decision making more complicated. So the purpose of this video is to give you a helping hand. Of course, it's not solving the problem because many of these decisions are strictly connected with your living conditions or the region where you're living. So at least in this video, I'd like to introduce you to the different options and also to give you some recommendations on how you should be planning your new vehicle purchase options. So basically, there are four different vehicle types that you're very familiar with. So the first one is the conventional internal combustion engine type with gasoline or diesel. And the next one is the hybrid type. And then there is a plug-in hybrid. And finally, the battery electric vehicle, the fully electric vehicle. So, and finally, we'll talk a little bit about how you should be considering your buying decisions based on different factors that we'll discuss in this video. So let's get started. So basically, as we discussed, so we'll start with the most conventional type of vehicle system, which is the gasoline. So basic or diesel type. So the key advantages are the first one is the widespread infrastructure. So the gasoline stations are widely available, so making the refueling very convenient. And it has longer driving range. Gasoline cars generally have, or gasoline or diesel cars generally have longer driving range compared to an electric vehicle. So of course this is something debatable topic because now the latest electric vehicles can also achieve similar range. However, as a general rule, the ICT vehicles are have much higher range compared to battery vehicles in reality or in practice. And also quick refueling. So the gasoline refueling, a gasoline car or a diesel car takes few minutes, and this infrastructure is also available in almost all countries, so that's no problem at all. So in matter of minutes, you can get your car refreshed and ready for after refueling. So the disadvantages include the environmental impact. So this is something that's why the battery electric vehicles are getting more and more popular these days. So it emits greenhouse gases and contributes to air pollution, impacting the quality of air. Although it doesn't seem like your immediate problem or the problem of your region, so this is a problem that you have to deal with in the future. So it's better that you should start considering this from now on in your planning. Fuel cost, the gasoline prices can fluctuate and the cost of fuel can be significant expense over time. So although the vehicle cost lower in the beginning, your total cost of ownership over time is due to the fuel cost, that too fluctuating fuel cost is very high. Finally, it's the maintenance. So the highly mechanical or mostly mechanical internal combustion engine vehicles requires frequent maintenance and also even annual maintenance. So therefore, making the total expenses over the lifetime much higher. And some comments, of course, in this is the most popular type that it needs no introduction. So therefore, there is no additional comment required about the internal combustion engine. So with that as the introduction, then we'll move on with the next type. So this is the hybrid type. So the hybrid type, so there are two types of hybrids. The first one is the hybrid, as we call it, and the next one is plug-in hybrid, which we'll discuss in the next part. A hybrid car is a combination of internal combustion engine and a battery, but with no option to charge the battery externally. That means the system has a built-in or an own capability to charge the battery as the vehicle moves. However, the plug-in hybrid has a possibility to charge it, and the advantages and disadvantages to this we'll see in the next sections, but this is the key difference between a hybrid and a plug-in hybrid. The advantages: improved fuel efficiency. The hybrid cars combine an internal combustion engine and electric motor, so therefore the fuel efficiency is better because the car kind of optimizes the source of power depending on the type of drive. So meaning this, is it a high power drive or eco drive? So depending on that, the system will automatically make the most optimized approach in driving. Lower emissions, so hybrid car produce fewer emissions because it's not 100% gasoline or diesel, so therefore it has much high it has much reduced emissions compared to traditional gasoline or diesel cars. Regenerative braking, so hybrid vehicles use regenerative braking to convert the kinetic energy into electric energy. So therefore, as I mentioned earlier, these vehicles cannot be charged externally, so this vehicle charges by itself as it moves, and therefore improving the efficiency. The disadvantages, the first one is limited electric range. So most hybrid vehicles have limited electric only range, so that means it's still driving mostly by the internal combustion engine. So for longer trip especially, so the contribution from the electric engine is quite limited, and especially this is optimized or desired by the vehicle itself. So that means depending on your driving style, the electrical contribution could be very limited. The battery degradation, so the hybrid batteries can degrade over time, resulting in a reduced efficiency and performance, and also cost. So this can involve in higher costs at the end of the battery lifetime. And higher cost upfront. The hybrid cars generally have a initial cost higher than a traditional internal combustion engine vehicle, which is of course logical because you have more components and the dual system in a hybrid car. So about common, so I mean hybrid car is getting more and more popular in countries or in regions like North America, Japan. So and there are many manufacturers like Toyota who are actively promoting this kind of engines. So with that as the introduction to electric ecosystem, the next type is the plug-in hybrid. So plug-in hybrid, as we discussed earlier, the key difference is that you can use the battery more depending on the possibility that you can charge it. So that means it has a possibility to use the electric side of hybrid more compared to a traditional hybrid with no plug-in option. The advantage is it has extended electric range. That means a plug-in hybrid have higher battery capacity, and therefore it has an extended range. Flexibility, it can run on electricity on short trips, so therefore you can use reduce the consumption of your gasoline or diesel system, which makes the overall cost per trip much lower, and it has a lower fuel cost. So that means the more chance you have to use electric part of the hybrid, the total fuel cost is reduced. Disadvantages, the electric range. So the plug-in hybrid offers extended range, but it's still typically lower than a pure electric vehicle because it has to deal with dual system. A charging infrastructure, so it requires charging infrastructure to get these charges. Meaning, if you are in the move, you need to be able to charge your vehicle, and if this is not available, this can be a disadvantage. And finally, it's the higher upfront cost. So the plug-in hybrid, as you can imagine, since an additional charging system is included in addition from the traditional system and the hybrid system, so definitely it is a little bit more expensive than a traditional or a standard hybrid vehicle. So some of the top manufacturers include again Toyota, and also there are many OEMs in the Europe and US who are now adopting plug-in hybrid. And mostly some of the key again it's North America and Japan and many countries in Europe who are actively using plug-in hybrid vehicles now in the field, and also China is adopting such systems now more and more compared to in the past. So the completing the battery electric profile is the fully electric vehicle. So we call it BEV, so battery electric vehicle. So the advantages is that it has zero emissions. So there is no trade-off here. It's purely zero emissions, and it needs no tailpipe. So meaning there is no emission at all. Lower operating costs. So electric vehicles are generally cheaper. So it means you don't need to fuel the vehicle at all. So there is no gasoline or diesel needed. It's purely running on electric, and it's quieter and smoother driving experience because so my experience was it was driving like a go-kart or a toy. So meaning it is much smoother and you have better control over the vehicle, because it's running on based on the acceleration or the braking demand as you give. There is no influence from the running engine like in an internal combustion engine. So therefore, it gives you a more smoother and silent driving experience, which some people like, some people still like the traditional internal combustion engine approach. Disadvantage, it has a limited range. So this is something, again, this technology is evolving, and in the future, the range will get increased. So that's one of the challenge that the battery electric vehicle manufacturers are facing right now. Second is a charging infrastructure. So the moment you are not able to charge, the vehicle simply becomes idle. So meaning there is no, you need to make sure that the charging infrastructure is available, especially when you're traveling for more long distances. Longer charging time. So this is one of the biggest, let's say, concern point for battery electric vehicle. So this is something what the manufacturers are working actively, because the vehicle needs, just like a mobile phone, a lot of time to charge, get fully charged. So I don't want to give any numbers here, but you can imagine this long period can be the idle time, especially in your long trips. You'll have to simply wait until the vehicle is getting charged. So this is something which kind of limits the adoption rate of battery electric vehicles right now. But many countries in Europe are actively working on solving this issue, especially the infrastructure and the charging time. So we will see some progress in the next years. Top manufacturers. So I think almost all European manufacturers announced their plan to move to completely battery electric lineup in the future. What means future is, of course, please check by yourself in the internet. So some are targeting 2030 and then beyond. And especially it's the Europe which is driving the battery electric lineup in the future, and following in US also. However, some regions like South America and countries in Asia or Africa, so this trend is still not yet popular. However, there are manufacturers who are now promoting this, especially from an environmental point of view. Good. So then that was the last part of the vehicle types, and then finally I want to conclude this video by giving you some hints. So maybe this is not a fully 360-degree view of everything that you need to see, but these are something that you should see as first step. So before you make a decision about which vehicle to buy for you, the first thing that you need to know is, for example, the regional factors, so the infrastructure for charging, and also different policies. So if you have any benefits that you are getting when using a battery electric vehicle over the traditional vehicle, and also if the countries have decided to kind of reduce or stop the use of internal combustion engine due to emissions, or if there are low emission zones where you're not able to use your traditional vehicles anymore. So all this please consider. And also finally the regulatory needs. So what kind of regulatory roadmap you have in that region, and how will that impact the use of such vehicles in the future. Second is the kind of use. So meaning if it's a business or private use. So if it's business use that you're driving for business reasons, there could be some advantages of using electric vehicle, because there are many advantages, especially when it comes to the carbon footprint. So this could in future force more and more companies to use electric vehicles in future. And then finally your annual kilometers, so what kind of mileage you're expecting annually. So this is also kind of an important factor for your battery electric vehicle, especially from a financial point of view. And also what kind of trips you have. Do you have short trips or long trips? So this also kind of is a very important point while considering the vehicle type. The third consideration is a kind of ownership. So especially if you're planning to own the vehicle for a longer period of time or a shorter period of time. So especially when you're living as an expat, probably you don't need this vehicle for a longer period of time. So then your decision might be impacted based on the points we discussed earlier. The second reason is the type of contract. So if you plan to buy it, so you want to own it for your private use, or if you want to use a lease option, So by the way, about these options, there's a different video available, what I've explained of the different ownership options and how that kind of impacts your buying decision, especially from a financial planning point of view, total cost of ownership, the vehicle lifetime, and so on. So it could be also a rental vehicle. So all this influence your decision. The final in topic is the availability. So of course, the rate of implementation or adoption is not the same in all regions or not even among different manufacturers. So please consider also the availability and also the support that you required, especially when you consider your battery electric vehicle or internal combustion vehicle decision. So thanks a lot for your attention. So I think that is all. So there are more videos and feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.